Sheikh Hamdan's wife gave him an ultimatum. He chose the other woman. She gave him a choice. Not the kind of choice that most people give when they say they are giving a choice. The kind that is really a threat, dressed in the language of options, where one path is so clearly the expected one that the framing as a choice is simply a way of making the expectation feel less like a demand. A real choice, with two real paths, both of them available, both of them possible, neither of them obviously wrong from every angle. She laid them out clearly, with the specific directness of a woman who had decided that the time for managing the ambiguity of the situation was over, and that what the moment required was clarity. Him or her, the official marriage or the private one, the arrangement that the family had built around the future of the crown or the relationship that had existed before the arrangement and that had continued through it. And that was, by any honest measure, the primary commitment of his life, regardless of what the official record said. She said it plainly, and she waited for his answer. She had not arrived at the ultimatum easily. Ultimatums of this kind, the real ones, the ones that carry genuine stakes and that are issued by people who mean what they are saying, do not come from impatience or from the kind of reactive anger that produces statements that are later retracted. They come from the end of a long process of trying other things first. She had tried patience. She had tried presence. She had tried the sustained, dignified, effortful navigation of a marriage that had always been more official than real. She had tried to believe that what she had been offered, the title, the position, the official acknowledgement, was enough. She had tried to close the distance between herself and her husband through the ordinary means that people use when they are trying to build a real connection inside an arrangement that was not designed with real connection as its primary purpose. She had tried all of those things, and none of them had produced what they were supposed to produce. And so she arrived, finally and without apology, at the ultimatum. She deserved better than the marriage she had been given. That is the truth that the ultimatum was built on. Not the anger of a woman who had been surprised by betrayal, the clear eyed assessment of a woman who had been in a situation long enough to understand its full shape and who had decided, with the specific self respect that her consistent dignity had always reflected, that she was not going to continue indefinitely inside a shape that was never going to change into something that gave her what she deserved. The ultimatum was not a manipulation. It was a statement of what she needed the situation to become in order for her to remain in it. And the statement was honest enough, and the meaning of it was clear enough that the response to it was going to tell her everything she needed to know about what the situation was actually going to be going forward. Hamdan heard it. In whatever specific form the ultimatum arrived, whether in a direct conversation or through the accumulation of communications that made the position clear beyond the possibility of misreading, he understood what was being asked. He or her, the official marriage or the private one, the arrangement or the love, he understood, and he took the time that the understanding required before he gave his answer. Not a long time. Some things, once they have been thought about for long enough across the years of living with them, do not actually require additional time to decide when the moment of decision finally arrives. The thinking had been done. The knowing was already there. What the ultimatum required was not more thinking, but the acknowledgement of what the thinking had already arrived at. He chose the other woman, not with an announcement, not with the kind of formal declaration that official decisions in his world require, in the specific way that private decisions are communicated in private, through what he did next, through where he directed his presence and his energy, and the specific quality of his commitment in the days following the ultimatum. He moved toward the private world. He moved toward London. He moved toward the woman who had been in his life before the marriage and through the marriage, and who had given him children and built him a home and waited through everything the official world had required him to be, with the specific patience of someone uh, who understood that the waiting was the condition and that the condition was worth enduring because what was at the other end of it was real. The official marriage received his answer in the way that official marriages receive the answers that end them, not through the answer itself, which was never going to be delivered officially, but through the consequence of the answer. Sheha felt the consequence before it was explained to her. She had given the ultimatum knowing that both outcomes were possible, that he might choose the official world, might choose the title and the position and the family expectation and the management of the official story over the genuine feeling. And that if he did, she would have to build a different kind of peace with what she had received. Or that he might choose the other way, the private world, the other woman, the real feeling over the official arrangement. She had given the ultimatum, knowing that either answer was the truth, and the answers that came was the truth. She left with her dignity, because that is what she had always brought to this marriage, and what she was not going to allow the ending of it to take from her. She had entered with dignity. She had navigated the impossible with dignity. She had given the ultimatum with dignity, and she left with it, intact, carrying the specific quiet strength of a woman who had made a demand that was reasonable and received an answer that was honest and departed from both with the self respect that a woman who deserved better than she received had always been entitled to. The other woman received the answer differently, not as a victory. The people who know her say that the word victory does not describe how she experienced Hamdan's choice, as a confirmation of something she had always understood to be true, but that the official world had spent years declining to confirm. He had always loved her. The choice had always been going to come down to this. The confirmation of it, the specific moment when the official story could no longer avoid acknowledging what the private one had always contained, felt less like winning and more like the arrival of something that had been on its way for a very long time. The wife gave the ultimatum. He chose the other woman. And the official story of Sheikh Hamdan changed. Not in the public way that official stories change, not through announcements and statements and the managed communications that palace families use to tell the world what it is permitted to know, in the private way, in the only way that the most real things in his life have ever changed, quietly, without the world knowing, in a moment that belonged only to the people inside it. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell. Every week I bring you the real story of Sheikh Hamdan, the ultimatums, the choices, and the truth about what a man reveals about himself when he is finally given two clear paths and has to choose which one he is actually going to walk.